What if I told you that in the Middle Ages, men and women walked the streets in shoes so absurdly long, so impractical, that they reached over 2 feet past the toes, shoes that made stairs a challenge, running impossible, and kneeling in prayer a farce? You'd think it was just fashion, right? A medieval joke? But the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. These shoes weren't simply about style. They were about power, corruption, hidden symbolism, and maybe even censorship. Before we dive in, hit subscribe right now, because the story you're about to hear is one the history books laugh off. One the church denounced as sinful, one kings tried to legislate away, and yet one that hides a chilling truth. Drop a comment with how long you dare wear shoes like these and like this video, so the truth doesn't get buried again. Close your eyes and imagine Paris, 1382. The streets stink of smoke and sewage. Merchants shout their prices. Bells toll from Notre Dame. And then your gaze falls on the nobles parading through the square. Their robes trail the ground, their heads held high, and at their feet, shoes, plants, leather monstrosities, curling to razor points, extending like knives. Some stretch past the length of a man's arm. People whisper, laugh, even curse under their breath. But no one dares question too loudly, 'cause here's the thing. Pool lanes weren't just a joke. They were status. Nobles flaunted them as proof they didn't need to labor, didn't need to run, didn't need practicality. A peasant had to chop wood, herd animals, till fields. Try doing that in shoes 2 feet long, you'd break your ankle in minutes. These shoes were fashioned as control, wealth displayed in the most impractical way possible. And yet, it goes deeper. The first clue lies in an English statute from 1463 under King Edward IV, limiting commoners' shoes to 2 inches beyond the toes. Nobles, however, faced no such restriction. The law wasn't about practicality, it was about drawing a line. Shoes became a weapon of class warfare, forcing everyone to know their place with every step, but priests hated them. In sermons, poulains were denounced as the devil's claw. Some clerics insisted their pointed shape symbolized lust, arrogance, and sin. One fiery preacher in Florence called them the horns of pride worn on the feet. In Poland, where the fashion began, chroniclers note that the first to wear them were knights connected to the Teutonic Order, a secretive military brotherhood. And here's where the whispers start. Some say the long points weren't just for show, they were coded messages. In certain circles, the length of a man's palain allegedly revealed his status in a hidden hierarchy, perhaps even membership in secret fraternities. The shoe became a uniform, visible only to those who knew how to read its meaning. Still think that sounds far-fetched? Consider this. Archaeologists digging cesspits in medieval London discovered poulains stuffed with parchment scraps. When pieced together, some fragments contained not random notes, but heretical writings, sermons condemning corruption in the church. Why hide manuscripts inside shoes? Is it recycling, leather padding, or smuggling censored texts beneath the feet of the elite? Imagine nobles walking through plague-ridden streets, each stride trampling forbidden knowledge, heresy literally underfoot. And then there's the plague itself. During the Black Death, these shoes may have become silent killers. Physicians warned nobles that the long, dragging points picked up filth, human waste, and infected blood, spreading disease into homes and courts. In one chilling 1350 letter, a physician pleaded for the ban of poulains, calling them the devil's spoons of death. Weeks later, the physician vanished from records. His writings disappeared. Was he silenced for daring to blame noble fashion for plague deaths? But this wasn't just about health, it was about ritual. In suppressed chronicles from German abbeys, monks described secret gatherings of the Brethren of the Long Shoe, men whose points curved upward, as if reaching for heaven or mocking it. In one account, their shoes were said to be measured before entering the chamber, the longest earning the highest honor. Was this a parody or initiation? The fact that the record was censored suggests someone didn't want it preserved. And here's the darkest whisper. Some nobles supposedly used their palanes to conceal blades. The extended tip could hide a slender dagger, turning fashion into a weapon. There are reports of duels in which a fatal strike came not from a sword, but from a sudden kick, the shoe's point piercing like steel. Authorities dismissed these as rumors. But again, why suppress it if it were only a rumor? Let's also remember symbolism. In medieval art, devils and demons were often depicted with twisted claws and curling feet. Now look again at the poulaines. Curved, sharp, grotesque were nobles mocking faith or proclaiming allegiance to something darker. When priests thundered that Satan enters through vanity, were they speaking metaphorically or literally? And think about this. Peasants trudged barefoot or in simple boots, while nobles hobbled in useless extensions. Every step was theater. Poulaines turned, walking itself into a spectacle of power. I do not labor, I do not run, I do not stoop, I glide above you. Fashion became propaganda, and propaganda became controlled. Even laws reflected this. In Venice, a sumptuary law declared that women of ill repute could not wear palanes. Why? Because their shoes blurred class lines. The elite feared not the absurdity of the shoes, but their democratization. The shoe wasn't about walking, it was about marking who was allowed to be seen. And then the manuscripts. In one Florentine archive, a law from 1394 forbade the disposal of parchment into cesspits. Why ban this unless it was happening often? And where do we find parchment fragments? In palanes, again and again. It's forbidden texts, hidden in fashion, lost to filth. Could it be that some of Europe's most dangerous heretical writings were erased not by fire, but by being trampled beneath noble feet? Here's where the conspiracy sharpens. Look at the timeline. Poulaines peak in the late 14th century. Right as the church cracks down on heresy, burns the Templars, hunts the Lollards, silences reformers. At the same time, nobles flaunt absurd shoes, while fragments of banned manuscripts vanish into cesspits. Coincidence or cover-up? Because here's the chilling thought. What if those shoes were never just fashion? What if they were a distraction? Imagine plague, famine, revolt spreading across Europe. What better way to keep nobles obsessed with status than absurd shoes while silencing dissent underfoot? What better way to hide dangerous texts than inside leather curled like a claw? And so, I ask you, were palaines ridiculous fashion or a ritual? Or a weapon or censorship? The truth is likely all of it. The shoe became a battlefield of class, faith, secrecy, and disease. Every stride is a statement. Every point is a symbol. Every fragment stuffed inside a whisper of knowledge erased. So the next time you see a medieval painting of nobles in absurd shoes, don't laugh. Look harder. Ask what secrets they're hiding. And ask yourself, if people could be controlled by shoes in the Middle Ages, what controls us today under the guise of just style? Subscribe, because in our next forbidden story, we'll uncover something even more chilling. Not what nobles wore on their feet, but what they carried in their hands.